Well, I have been putting it off and putting it off, but finally, today is the day. What is it I have to do? Well, it is time to open this. This is precious metal clay. It's something I've been wanting to do for ages, but then I got the package in the mail and I've been terrified. Today is the day I am going to open it and try it for the first time. So come along with me and we'll check out this fascinating new product. So what is this stuff that has me so troubled and excited? Well, this is precious metal clay. It was developed in Japan in the 1990s, and it's basically very, very, very tiny particles of precious metal, in this case, fine silver, mixed with an organic binder and water so that it's malleable. It's a clay. Then you fire it, either in a kiln or certain formulations with a torch, and you have the binder burns away, the water has evaporated, and you have remaining fine silver, which is pretty cool. So you don't have to have the silversmithing, the metal smithing experience in order to make really wonderful things. Being a precious metal, it is kind of expensive. It comes in different sizes. I have a 15-gram package, which in January of 2021 cost me about $40. The price does go up and down with the market. And I haven't opened this yet because once you open it, it does start to dry out. And one of the key things is to keep it from getting dried out until you're ready for it to dry out. So that's why I've put off opening this until I was ready. So I'm going to open this, and actually there's two sides to this package. One of them has your directions, so I suppose I could have opened that before. And I will take a look at that. I will be torch firing this because I don't have a kiln. I'd love to have a kiln, but I don't. So if you plan to do the same and you don't have a kiln and don't want to invest in one, make sure whatever you get, if it's not this brand, PMC3, make sure that it says you can torch fire it. Not all of them can be. So I'll set aside my instructions for later and now get to the fun part. We're going to open this up. And I'm making this video for you because I know you've seen, if you have any interest in this stuff, you've probably seen people who have experience with it opening up packages like this. But I've never opened one before. I've never worked with this before. So I thought you'd be interested in seeing how I made out. Now, I have to say I've watched a lot of classes, a lot of videos. I've read like half a dozen plus books. One of the things they say to do is make sure that your hands are well oiled. I'm going to remove my ring here. So I've got just a little olive oil. And you don't need much, but you do want your hands and your tools to be oiled so they don't stick, because if it sticks, well, you might have $10 worth of clay stuck to your hands. So here it is. And you don't want to leave any little bit of this behind. So we'll try to, you can let that dry. We can do other things to get that up off of there. We can let it dry and then use it for other things. And so that's a very nice consistency right out of the package. And I had to make a guess as to what the volume, wow, this is heavy, it's very dense, was. And I'll tell you more about that. So let's see, yeah, it was about a 3/4 inch ball. Okay, that's good to know. So you just kind of work it when you get it out of the package. And right from the package is when it's going to be freshest and most moist and easy to deal with. And this is indeed. And you can knead it a little, but it doesn't look like it needs it really. Just if you kind of bend a piece over and it's nice and smooth, it's not cracking, then you know it's nice and moist. So one of the classes I watched, the very first thing she suggested you do is actually make some test strips, which I think is brilliant. So you can practice your firing on those. And somebody figured out a really great way of rolling even sheets, because you don't want to roll this through your pasta machine. And it's to use playing cards. So this is a deck of playing cards I picked up at the dollar store. And I'm going to roll this 3 cards thick. So you just take 3 cards, put them on either side. And you need a smooth surface to work on. I have a white laminate countertop, and that's very nice. You can also just use a piece of plastic, or you can use things like Teflon sheets, which I am going to use. I may want to roll on that. Let's see how it goes. I'm curious how this behaves compared to polymer clay. So you could see I oiled my roller, and now by just rolling over that, I know that I have a sheet of clay that is a consistent thickness. And I'm just going to use a ruler and cut out some test strips so that I can practice firing something that isn't really precious. My fingers are oily and I can't pick up my tools. Okay, so we'll start by just cutting that, and then this is the, oh, now it's getting, oh, yep, I gotta oil my blade. Probably not that much. Yeah. This is where just getting a little practice in is gonna help you a lot. And what I have here is a little terracotta pot that's been soaking in a bowl of water, and inside there is a sea sponge that's also filled with water, soaked in water, and it's just stuffed up in there. So I'm keeping my clay in there, and that's supposed to keep it hydrated. That's like the most important thing, is not to set your pieces aside because they start to dry out very quickly. I also have some water here with just a little vinegar. It's like a half a teaspoon per cup of water. And I'm just going to, I suppose I should find a better spot for my ring. Give that a spritz. And all this little stuff here, you don't want to lose that, because it's not quite as pricey as gold, but $40 for that little tiny package. We want to save every tiny bit. So I'm going to cut this into about 1.25 inches wide strips. So this is, at the moment, it's behaving a little more gooey than polymer clay. That's interesting. By the way, this video was originally made for my patrons. If you love content like this and like the idea of supporting an artist, you might want to check out my Patreon page. You'll have the opportunity to get bonus tutorials, early access to my YouTube videos, and monthly chats with me. Check it out at patreon.com/SandySewin. And I'm going to take these extra, oh gosh. Oh, that is gooey. Wow, I guess I got a nice fresh package. All right, you know what? This is not working great. Let's see if we can, does this work like polymer clay, where we can kind of use the clay to pick itself up? Sort of. Let's see. I think I need to work on the Teflon sheets. Well, kind of. Okay, it sort of picks that up. And I imagine when that dries, so when you have little tiny bits, when it dries, you can then use it to make things like slip, which is sort of the glue. If you're into polymer clay, it would be like the liquid clay. I am going to try this again with my 3 cards. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Make sure, of course, they're on top of whatever you're rolling out of, so that you get your even thickness. A little bit of oil on my rolling pin. Let's try that again. Yeah, I think that'll be better. Oh, because now it's kind of lumpy. Interesting. And I'll just get a little oil on that blade. Oh, that's behaving better. So I'm going to take this piece. Uh-oh, I'm getting gooey on my fingers. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's like 50 cents worth of silver right there. All right, it goes back under my little little house. In fact, I'm just going to kind of, let's see, what'd she say? About 1.25 inches. Well, see, I think it was almost too moist coming out of the package, which is interesting because all the books and all the videos I read were keep it moist, it's not moist enough. but that was like too gooey. But now that it's been out in the air a little bit, it's drying and it's actually easier to manage. So that's, all right, so I'm going to cut that approximately in half. And these will be test strips that, oh, see, now it came up. All right, that I can fire. I'm going to underfire one and then maybe overfire one. That's what she suggested so that you can see what it looks like. It's crucial if you want your jewelry to be fully fired and be as strong as you can possibly get it with torch firing. This is the most helpful thing I did to help calm my nerves about opening this package of clay, and that was to practice with polymer clay. To practice, I had to kind of make a guess based on the feel of the package. I couldn't just weigh out 15 grams of polymer clay. It was much bigger. This stuff, the silver, was much more dense. I guessed it was around a 7/8 inch ball of clay, and I wasn't far off. It was about a 3/4 inch ball, so I probably won't get this very last piece in. But I decided to see what I could make with a 7/8 inch ball of clay, and it was all of these things, believe it or not. So I made myself a list of all the things I wanted to make, and then I just started going through it and was able to form all of these out of that one small ball of polymer clay. And I felt so much better afterwards because I had a plan. The next thing I wanted to make was some bead caps. I thought that would be really cute. I have this bead that I made in a lampwork glass class, and I love it, but of course the ends are not great. So I thought it would be really fun to make some pretty fine silver caps, because this is fine silver wire I incorporated into the bead. So let's do that next. I made myself a note here that I rolled the clay for the bead caps 2 cards thick, and then I just have these little ceramic beads that the caps can dry on, and that way they'll be a little bit curved, because as you can see, the ends of this bead are not, so they'll kind of bulk out those poorly made ends. That's my plan. So while I'm rolling this out, a couple of tips. As I said earlier, and I can't emphasize this enough, if you don't have a kiln and you want to torch fire this, you just need a little like creme brulee torch, nothing fancy. You can get them at like Home Depot. Then they're not very expensive. You use them for annealing metal and all kinds of things. It's a great little thing to have. So you can torch fire it as long as it's the right type of clay. So do double check that before you spend the money on it. And these come in packages of 15 grams. Right now in early 2021, a 5-gram package is about $17 if you just want to get your feet wet. Just want to start exploring it, but you'll be able to make a few things, but not a ton. All right, so I'm going to put that back in its little house. Oops, that piece is sticking out. So give it a spritz. I really got to find a better place for that. The reason for the vinegar is to inhibit mold. I am kind of hoping to just use this whole package and not have to worry about that. But if you were using it and then setting it aside for a while because it stays wet and now it's no longer in its sealed container, you might want to add that little bit of vinegar. I have a set of little Bootlace ferrule cutters, and this is a 1/2 inch round cutter. And I will link all of the products that I am using. So I'm just going to cut a little hole. Now remember that this stuff has a binder and water in it, and it will shrink about 10 to 12%. Or here it says 10 to 15%. Different brands have different amounts of shrinkage. And, oh, I think I have polymer clay mixed in with my silver clay. So let's see if we can separate those. Yep. Okay, this goes back in the little house. And now I will put these on the bead. And I'm just gonna kind of play with it. Kind of looking at this bead. How do I want to texture this? Maybe make some dots all around. I chose that bead because it's very organic, so I didn't feel like I would need to make something real precise. But I love the idea of using this to make custom findings. I think that's just so cool. Actually, I sort of like this kind of hammered metal look. And, you know, just like with polymer clay, if you hate it, you can roll it up in a ball and start again. And if it dries out, you can bring it back just by adding water, even if it dries out completely. If you've done any ceramics, you'll be familiar with some of the terms that they use, because just like before you can fire ceramics, it has to dry out. You want to dry all the moisture to be gone. And they call that, call it greenware, and it gets leather hard. And it's the same with this. You need this to be completely dry. I can feel it drying as I'm working it here. I need to open up my hole just a little bit more. But once it's fired, you have silver. And so if you've worked with metals at all, that's what you've got. I just have a little bit of poster tack here to hold that bead upright while I let my silver dry. Let's see. Yeah, I can feel it's different to work with at this point, which is kind of interesting. Now it's already drying a fair amount. It's a little more resistant to making marks and less soft and squishy. So that's something, once you get used to the feel of it, you can use to your advantage. Now you can buy, I was saying about the amounts, you can buy 5, 15, 25, 50 grams, which is going to run you right now, like I said, in January of 2021, somewhere in the vicinity of $130. So it's not going to be wasted. Even if you were to open it, use a little, and it would dry out. You can reconstitute it with water, but it may take some work. If you ever mixed liquid clay with solid polymer clay and it takes forever to mix it and get a smooth mixture, I suspect it's like that. It's a pain in the neck. So you just want to plan your purchase accordingly. You know, it's less per gram if you buy the big package, but you know, you're going to be able to utilize all of that. Okay, where's my hole? My hole disappeared, and I put it on there off center, so my hole is no longer centered. So I think, where's that cutter? I think I'm going to recut that. Probably should have made more of an effort to put that on there centered. That's okay. And I didn't even think about this. I think it'll be fine now with the organic nature that these are going to shrink, so they're going to be a little bit smaller than I'm thinking. That'll be okay. So there's my bead caps, and that hole I can clean out once it's dry. I can go back in and refine it. Let's see, what's next? Next is just this little pair of dangles, like for earrings. And these are textured with a texture sheet. That's one of the things, I mean, those of us who do polymer clay, we adore texture. And you can just translate that right over. So let's grab another little piece. Yeah, this is staying nice and fresh in there in its little house. So that seems to be working very well. One video class that I highly recommend is the Torch-Fired Precious Metal Clay class on Craftsy by Jenny Vestrel, I believe. And she actually shows you, she ends up getting her entire hands and palms covered with this stuff. And then she shows you how to come back from that. And if you just let it dry out a little bit, it'll pick itself up, just like polymer clay does. Can I do that? Yeah. So here's my olive oil. I'm going to put some back on. I keep forgetting. So these are like new habits that you just have to learn for using a new material is all. So I cut those 4 cards thick, or rolled those 4 cards thick, so we'll do that. Now you can use any of your tools that you would use for polymer clay, as long as they are something that you can wash. You can use them with the PMC. What you don't want to use is like sandpaper and brushes and things that are going to have residue left, because you don't really want to mix them. So I have here a texture sheet, and I'm going to add just the tiniest bit of oil rather than to the texture sheet. Oh, that's too much. Just to the surface. Because if you get polymer clay mixed in with this, it's going to burn off in the firing, but that just doesn't seem like a good thing to be smelling and smoking and inhaling and all that. So I'm going to just find an area of my texture sheet that I like and press it in. Oh, uh-oh, oh no, oh no, are we making a mess? Oh, that wasn't too bad. Okay, good. Phew. Oh dear. Okay. Let's get every bit of this out. Also, there is copper precious metal clay, which I have a package of it, and I was planning on practicing with that to start with. But what I learned from my reading is that that's actually trickier to use. So I decided to just do this first. Let's see. And I'm just going to cut a couple of these. Oh, yeah, oil. I just keep forgetting to oil my tools. That would make life easier. Not going to get the whole thing? Yep. That was better. Not great. All right, take away. Well, just like in polymer, you got to kind of remember to press. There we go. Give it a little wiggle. Come on out. Well, I don't know. I think I'm going to start that again. I'm not real happy with that. And maybe this time it'll be a little bit more dry and not so gooey. It's actually not what I expected. They were all talking about how quick it would dry out, and I'm finding that it's a little too wet. So, okay. Tiny bit more oil on my roller. And you don't have to worry about, like, you know, in polymer clay when you're rolling it out and there's schmutz on it. Nope. Anything that isn't silver is going to burn away. So that's kind of comforting. All right. I will put, let's see, oil on my texture sheet. Okay, let's try that again. Okay. Oh, that's better. Yeah, good. Oil on my cutter. See, this takes a little practice to get the hang of it. Give it a wiggle so I get a clean cut. There. I'm getting it. And those ragged edges, you know, if you've done polymer, then that's what happens. those you can clean up after it's dry. It's much easier to do. Your holes, remember, they're going to shrink a little, so you want to cut them a tiny bit bigger than you think you're going to want. So, yeah, I think I will use this one. Now you have to decide what's the top. Make your hole, leave like at least the distance of the cutter from the hole to the edge. I think that will be the top here, so that it's not too thin. Okay. And those can set aside to dry. So really, it's just a matter of getting used to using a new material. The practice with the polymer clay really made a huge difference in my confidence level as to what I was going to make and how I was going to do it. So I think I'm going to carry on and make these other things. This is just a textured piece with a hole cut out for a toggle, and I made a little textured bar. One thing I should mention about torch firing is the pieces are not going to be as strong as if you kiln fire. So if you have something that has a lot of structural purposes, if it's doing a lot of supporting, you're probably going to want to make it thicker than you might otherwise. To get the absolute strongest possible piece, you do need to kiln fire, but you can get perfectly usable pieces by torch firing. There, my toggle clasp is done. Do make sure that you make your toggle bar long enough, about a little more than twice as big as the hole that you want it to go through. So that'll be really cute and fun and satisfying to use. One thing I realized as I was working on this, I dropped a piece on the floor. Now when I do that with polymer clay, it's not a huge deal. But with this, I'm like, oh boy, yeah, I gotta go find that. So try not to drop it on the floor. Oh, and here's something interesting. So here's that wrapper, and here, just in the few minutes that I've been working, you can see that this has dried up quite a bit. And actually, I think I'm going to use this and make some slip, because I want to use that in a little sculptural piece. So I'll just put these little crumbly bits in one of these palettes. And, I didn't want to bore you in this video with a long description of all of the tools that you need, because it is kind of a long list. But if you do polymer clay, you'll already have a lot of them, like the cutters and the sculpting tools and such. And a lot of the other things can be gotten at the dollar store, and I list all of that. So I'm just going to add some water to this, and I have a little paintbrush which from this point on shall be dedicated to silver clay and nothing else. And you just kind of mix it up. And when you're sanding your pieces after they've dried, you can save all the little sanding dust and add that to make slip. And there's even further little bits on here that I need to get off and into there. So you should let none of it go to waste. So I'll just let that sit for a couple of minutes. And one thing I really wanted to do was try sculpting with it. I just love the idea of something sculptural. So I am going to do this. This is just a sculpted piece cut into an oval, textured with one of my botanical texture plates, and then I sculpted a couple mushrooms. So this is what I have left. It may be just enough to do that piece, which is why I wanted to do that next. Oh, and this is very wet. Okay. Now, one thing I know for certain is that it will dry out. So, all right, oil. Yeah, just even as I'm rubbing, it's like drying. So you can see the little bits. It's drying and coming off my fingers. So this is the silver, and they actually do make this in gold, but a 3-gram package will run you $285. That's, again, it depends on the market of precious metals. There's a technique that many artists use to get gold into their pieces, and that is that they purchase a little bottle of, like, it's basically the slip. It's paint. It's the art clay silver in the art clay, precious metal clay in a paint form. And you can buy a gram of that for only $100. I'm not sure what a gram of that looks like. So you could make your piece in silver and then paint it with the gold. Paint select areas with the gold. But woo, even that, $100 for that. I don't know. I wonder how far it would go. You know, how many square millimeters? So not even square inches? Maybe square inches. Could you paint with that? I don't know. All right, I've got this is just a texture sheet that I made with things from my garden, and I love this because it's my own personal design. So it's nobody else's. And I'm going to do it this way because I want to get a certain area. I just really love these, I don't know if it's yarrow, I think. And I should have oiled that texture sheet first. Uh-oh, let's see. Oh, good. But it's not very deep, is it? I'm going to do that again. So again, as you're squishing it, if you kind of do a bend and it starts to crack, which it isn't yet, but when it does, that's when you know you need to just maybe add a little bit of water, which I'm not sure if I wanted to do that. All right, I'll roll this out again. So this is not as scary and as intimidating as I thought it would be. I think just educating yourself beforehand, having everything ready, having a plan makes a huge difference. And I'm really excited to see the results. As far as that's going. Okay, let's oil this because I got lucky last time. I mean, not this time. Yeah, I kind of want that right there. All right, I'm going to hold it, flip it over, and get a better impression. Hopefully it won't stick. Oh, hooray. Yay. Oh, I like that. And this is a really cool template that I got at Fire Mountain Gems. I absolutely love this kind of oval, kind of a long, elongated shape. And this is another really great tool. It's a PMC shrinkage ruler. So these are the actual inches and centimeters. And then this shows you after firing, like PMC3, 12% smaller. So, for example, oh, gosh, cut it out. So if I measured this before firing, that is 1.25 inches long. So if I flip this over and find PMC3, 1.25 inches, that's how big it's going to be. Looks like it's going to shrink by about 1/4 inch. Not a ton, you know, 10, 12%. But that's good to know. This is like $2 on Rio Grande if you're placing an order there anyways. So I am going to, I like having this kind of clear area up top. I think that looks nice to not have the entire thing too busy. And what's nice about this template is you can use just a needle tool. So you don't have to twist and turn a craft knife. And it does a great job. You just get a little extra on your needle tool and you take that off. And these edges that are all messy can be refined after it's dried. So don't worry about those. And I'm going to leave out a little pinch of this because I'm going to make my mushrooms. Put a little oil on this. Roll a ball for the mushroom cap. And I'm just squashing it over a 1/4-inch ball tool. Now, one thing to keep in mind about this stuff is that it's not like polymer clay in that it will stick to itself. You have to use plenty of slip, which is this little mixture here. Let's see how that's doing. Oh, see, that's gotten very nice. All those little pieces have dissolved into there. And all of the teachers that I have seen have recommended you be generous with the slip, because you don't want to spend all this time on sculpting something and then have things pop off. I'm going to make this just a tiny bit thicker. Little oil. Press it on there. Oh, it's starting to crack. Teeny tiny bit of water.